everyone. Welcome to CBR Saga, CBR's one and only podcast. Today we're talking about MCU villains. So it's only fair that today's episode is sponsored by Henchmen Are Us. If you need a random goon for your arch nemesis to beat up on, no worries, call Henchmen Are Us. But enough of the corporate sponsorship, let's get into our saga. The MCU has given us some of the greatest villains of all time, but one question that I could never quite shake is what would happen if these villains interacted with each other? Well, there would probably be a lot of fighting. But which villain would ultimately come out on top? Today, we're pitting some of the greatest villains in the MCU against each other. Check out this lineup. We have Ultron versus Thanos, Killmonger versus Red Skull, and then a full-on magic battle with Loki versus Mysterio. Yes, that's right. You heard me correctly. So who wins? Who loses? Who ends up crying in the corner? Let's find out right now. I'm joined by my co-host, Nick. Nick, how you doing today?
Doing well, ready to see some villains punch each other in the face.
Isn't that what we're all here for? Don't we just want villains to punch each other in the face over and over again to make us happy?
It would certainly make the hero's job a lot easier, Jacoby.
So let's get into kind of our first matchup today, which I think is going to be a good one. All right, I think for this first battle, I want to pit two massive villains against each other. Villains who could go mano-a-mano with each other. And I think what would make a great fight is Ultron versus Thanos. What do you think of this matchup?
I think when you first say that, people might be a little hesitant and say, okay, but there's a clear winner here. I think Thanos without the Infinity Gauntlet actually makes this a much more interesting fight and actually pretty close because they would fight in different ways, but I think one would come out on top.
Yeah, I'm happy you said that because yes, this is a Thanos without the Infinity Gauntlet, without the Infinity Stones, but I still think even without all that power that he used to wipe out half the universe, Thanos is going to punch that robot into, spare parts. What do you think?
I don't think so. Thanos is a good fighter. He proved to us that he could take on the Hulk one-on-one. The problem is he wouldn't be taking on Ultron one-on-one. Ultron has the capability to build several bodies, and they're all him. They're all technically him. They all work in harmony. He said that in Age of Ultron. He also has the ability to make himself out of this indestructible material that Thanos I don't think will be able to get through. I think Ultron will have more bodies in the fight, and will be able to come at Thanos from different angles. Look what the Avengers were able to do. They were able to subdue Thanos even with the Infinity Stones when they came at him all at once.
See, here's my problem with that about all these Ultron extra bodies running around, because I like to quote the great Drax here, where it seems like all of Ultron's little copies of all his robots, they're like paper people. I mean, did you see how the Avengers just mowed through these guys like they were nothing here? Thanos is this hulking brute, and yes, he doesn't have the Infinity Stones to go through, but he's still a great fighter. As we kind of mentioned, he fought the Hulk. He brought the Hulk to his knees. Thanos can obviously destroy anything that he has here, and yes, Ultron is made of this super strong material, but that doesn't necessarily mean all of his robots were, unless Ultron taps into some, find some vibranium. But even if he does, we've seen Thanos be able to break through vibranium when he broke through kind of Cap's shield. I mean, so just because Ultron is made of the super strong stuff, Thanos is still going to pummel him and make him wish he's never been made.
Thanos is good, but Ultron has the mind of Tony Stark. He's basically Tony Stark's son. And Tony Stark was an Avenger who was able to he was a human being who was able to take on Thanos, even for a short while. It didn't end well for him, but he was able to come up with different ways to make Thanos bleed. No one else was even able to do that at that point. The fact of the matter is, Ultron has that same mindset, has that same arrogance about him, but it's a good thing because you need to be able to believe you can beat Thanos, and Ultron will definitely be able to do that. Listen, Mantis, Drax, and Spider-Man were able to hold Thanos down and nearly get the glove off him. I guarantee you could get some Ultron bodies, make some stronger than others. Yes, there were some in that Sokovia fight that died very easily, by Hawkeye's arrow, but the fact of the matter is Ultron could make a few stronger bodies and a few paper people, as you say, to use for a distraction. Ultron basically has an army at his hand, and Thanos has nothing.
Thanos doesn't have nothing. Even you keep talking about an army. Thanos does have an army as well. He has followers. He has people who want to follow him into battle no matter what. He brought all those forces to that, and he united all these people even before he had the Infinity Stones. He had all these people at his feet. So then if it ultimately comes down to a faceless Ultron army versus what Thanos can bring to the table with his children of Thanos and all of the aliens that he's amassed over the galaxy, then those robots are going to stand no chance. Thanos is going to come out on top here.
Thanos has a clear weakness. I mentioned Ultron's arrogance, but Ultron's arrogance is a good thing. It drives him to win. Thanos' arrogance is a weakness. It drives him to lose. Thanos' arrogance allowed him to sit and allow his followers, as you say, like Nebula, to go try and get the Infinity Gauntlet while he just sat and did nothing. The fact is, Thanos lets his arrogance get in the way of his ability to win. Ultron will find that weakness and exploit it because he has such robotic thinking. He comes from the Mind Stone. He comes from an Infinity Stone. He's combined with all these different things that I don't think Thanos will be able to overcome.
I just think this is the Mad Titan we're talking about. This is someone who's feared across the whole galaxy. And just because you throw a robot at him, and maybe a few robots, I'll give you that, doesn't mean that Thanos is going to lose this fight. And even though Thanos is arrogant, his arrogance doesn't overshadow his ability to do it. I think Ultron's arrogance of just thinking he's the best ever is going to be his ultimate downfall. So it's going to be interesting to see these two go at it. Let's talk about our next matchup. And I think this one's going to be an interesting one too, because it's two people that I would just love to see beat the crap out of each other. I think a great matchup would be Killmonger versus Red Skull. Now, keep in mind, to be fair, we'll have this Killmonger be the Black Panther-infused Killmonger with the super strength to make it a bit of an even fight. But even though it is an even fight, maybe in terms of strength between these two, I think ultimately Red Skull is going to take this just mainly because of how absolutely nuts he is. He is so dedicated to building out his vision to basically, he wants to rule the world, and I think his drive to do that is going to come out on top of Killmonger. What do you think?
I disagree. I think while Red Skull is great, and he's actually one of my favorite villains in the MCU, I don't think he wins this fight for a couple reasons. You mentioned his drive. Yes, he has his drive, but Killmonger has just as equal of a drive, and it came from when he was a kid. He's literally been living with that drive his whole life. It's driven everything he's done to get to the moment where he is in Black Panther. I think Killmonger is easily a better fighter. Red Skull hasn't fought anyone in how many years? He's just been a general. Like, can you imagine going to the doctor and you say, here's two doctors. This one hasn't done heart surgery in 40 years and this one's been doing it every day. Which doctor are you taking? I'm taking the doctor that does it every day. Killmonger literally has spent every year of his life killing people, training. He's able to defeat T'Challa easily in that battle, and then he gets infused with the Black Panther serum. There's no stopping him. He takes on the entire Dora Milaje. He's a better fighter. I think he's more driven. I don't think Red Skull has a chance here.
Yes, I'm going to grant that Killmonger is the better fighter. He's certainly skilled, and he's killed a lot of people in his past. But I think Killmonger's weakness here is that he does have a bit of humanity left in him. And like, he's not a bad guy. When he presents his opinions of what he wants to do, yes, he's radical, but that doesn't mean you can't kind of see where he's coming from and what he wants to do in order to help people. Red Skull is flat out crazy. Red Skull will have no qualms, no mercy, no anything in his way to stop him from exacting the victory from his battle. Red Skull will do whatever it takes to win. Red Skull is also a genius. He's a brilliant scientist. He invents these weapons. Yes, he's a general, but he's also a brilliant tactician and someone who can make these clear weapons that's going to hurt Killmonger. Killmonger just has, some swords. Yeah, if he comes out with swords, great, but I want to see some swords versus a Red Skull invented Hydra-infused energy blast gun of some sort, and Killmonger is just going to be wasted.
Some swords? He's got a whole Black Panther suit. What are you talking about? Any gun fired at him, I feel like the Black Panther vibranium invented by Shuri, who is definitely smarter than Arnim Zola. Shuri is definitely a better weapons inventor, and Killmonger had access to that artillery, that arsenal. I think any of those weapons beat the Hydra weapons any day. I agree. Killmonger has more humanity left in him, but he's lost himself. He's just as lost. You see it when T'Challa fights him. He says, Killmonger says,
"The world took everything away from me."
T'Challa responds with,
"You have become them.
You've lost sight of who you are." He's also in that same sort of mental place that he'll stop at nothing. That's why he chooses to die. Like, T'Challa sees that flicker of humanity that you see in Killmonger, and Killmonger says, "Nope, I'm gone." So I think Killmonger is just as gone. He's just as focused on his goal to take out Red Skull.
But you're also kind of not taking into account that Red Skull is Hydra. He works with a whole army of Hydra. Killmonger's problem, he works alone. He betrays a lot of his allies in order to get what he wants to do it singularly by himself. Red Skull has a network. Red Skull has an organization. And when Killmonger goes up against the forces of Hydra and everything that Red Skull represents, I'm sorry, but in this case, one man can't make a difference. I mean, Red Skull is just going to come out on top here. What does Killmonger have in terms of a team, in terms of anyone besides himself in order to help him win this battle?
He has the tactical ability to build allegiances. He's been trained to do it in his time with the Navy SEALs and his time in the Army. And you see him do it on screen. He has that team that helps him rob the museum, and then when he doesn't need them anymore, he gets rid of them. That's the difference, is he's willing to sacrifice these people to further his goal, and then he's able to make new allies on the drop of a hat. He in one scene he kills Claw, and then he becomes allies with W'Kabi. He replaces those people. So yes, he has the ability to have followers. He gets the entire border tribe on his side in Black Panther. He is able to rally people behind him if that's what he needs. And you say one man can't make a difference? Captain America defeated Hydra. That's one man. I think Killmonger could do the same.
All right, I think that's just going to be such an interesting fight to see these two warriors, these two fighters with such strong ideologies fight each other. So let's move on to something else. So I want to pit some magic users against each other in an ultimate MCU villain brawl. So that's why I think what would be an awesome and really fun fight is Loki versus Mysterio. Yes, that's right. Even though Mysterio isn't quite the real magician as he claims to be, I actually think he is clever enough to come out on top against Loki. Yes, that's right. I said it. Mysterio can beat Loki 100%, hands down. Tell me how much you disagree with me.
Well, I'm excited to see how you argue this one, Jacoby, but I assume we're putting magic in quotation marks. Magic users. First of all, I'd like to offer you an olive branch to make this a fair fight. I assume we're talking about Team Mysterio, not just Quentin Beck.
Yeah, of course, because Mysterio's a team and he works with all those people. Yes, Team Mysterio.
Okay, Team Mysterio. And then here's the interesting thing about this fight is they're almost polar opposites. Loki is an agent of chaos. He hasn't planned a day in his life. He never plans anything. He just does. He's chaos. Team Mysterio is all about planning. They'll sit there and do dress rehearsals of the fight they're about to have. So, for the sake of this fight, I will say that Mysterio also has time to plan out his thing against Loki. And even with all those things I just gave you, Jacoby, Mysterio doesn't stand a chance.
You're making all my points for me. That's great. Keep going.
Even with all those things, Mysterio stands no chance. All Loki has to do is get close to him, just like Spider-Man does, and Quentin Beck is just a guy, and he survives nothing. Loki has real magic. Loki can do the Doctor Strange magic, and he's a fighter. He can take Thor on one-on-one. He can definitely take on a couple drones flying around him.
Look, Team Mysterio put on the greatest illusion the world has ever seen. It convinced it that Mysterio, this guy, is the great hero. He invented these elementals. He is able to trick people's minds. And I think that's the folly here. We talk all the time about how Loki is the trickster god and he likes to betray people. But also, Loki gets tricked a lot. His hubris gets the better of him. He thinks he's in control, and then it's hilarious when you see how not in control he actually is. Look at how easily manipulated Loki was by Black Widow in the first Avengers movie. He comes across as this guy who always knows the situation, who can read people super well. Then all of a sudden, Black Widow's milking all the information out of him, no problem whatsoever. And I think that's Quentin Beck's ultimate strength right here. He can trick Loki into thinking he has this sense of accomplishment, maybe this sense of victory. And then that's when Quentin Beck and Team Mysterio can enact this plan to either trap, contain, or beat Loki. Loki's hubris and his ability to think that he'll never be beaten is going to be his downfall here.
I disagree, and the Black Widow thing is unfair because she could get information out of anyone. If she tried to get information out of Quentin Beck, it would take 2 seconds. She's a master interrogator. So I'll give you that point, but also I won't. I think Loki is... you're talking about Loki's mindset, his hubris? Quentin Beck is a psychopath. He is a literal psychopath, willing to... He almost kills his, head engineer in the dress rehearsal because he, lost a camera. This dude is literally willing to, sacrifice members of his own team who, create him as Mysterio, and he's gonna lose the fight that way. All Loki has to do is get him to think that, one of his engineers, his costume designer, did something wrong, and he'll off him himself, and then it's an easy fight from there, because once part of the illusion is gone, all of it's gone, especially for a person who knows illusions, who was taught real illusions by his mother. Loki, he's the trickster god. Mysterio's just a trickster.
Mysterio is the trickster god who tricked a 15-year-old kid into giving him some super satellite questions. I want to see Loki do that, because I don't think that he can, because Loki doesn't value human life, because you keep saying that Mysterio's team are humans. They're a bunch of guys, and Loki's a literal god. Yes, and I'm saying that's their biggest advantage here. Loki looks down on humans and all that humans can actually do. And the fact that the point that you brought up before about how Team Mysterio is going to come into this with all the prep in the world. They're going to analyze all the game tape of every possible Loki sighting that we've seen and know everything about him before going into this battle in order to create this master illusion to trick him is going to work, because Loki, as you said, is an agent of chaos. You think he's going to plan on anything? If he says, oh, I have a fight against this Mysterio guy, I think he's going to do any sort of prep, any sort of anything like that? No, it's just going to show up to battle and see what happens. And that is going to be the ultimate problem, because Loki always underestimates humans. And the fact when you have a whole team of humans working specifically to take him down, and yes, who's led by Quentin Beck, who is a psychopath, but who is a very smart psychopath and genius and able to trick people and get people on his side, then yes, I think that's going to give these humans an edge over the trickster god.
Look, I do agree that I think Mysterio would have the best chance against Loki. But Mysterio's only able to trick humans. That's the issue, is at the end, when he dies, his last words are like, people are willing to believe anything. Loki's not a person, he's a god. He believes what he wants. And yes, you're right, he doesn't prepare because he's an agent of chaos, but he'll show up to any fight with a bag of tricks ready for any scenario, even if he didn't plan ahead for it. The fact of the matter is it's a god versus probably the best trickster group of humans. I'll agree with that, but it's a god. It's the god of mischief, and there's really no chance. And honestly, all Loki has to do is get by the drones like Spider-Man did, and Spider-Man had to use his spider sense. Loki has magic. He could be like, oh, magic, these drones don't work anymore, and get by, and he could like punch Mysterio, and he'd probably die.
All the humans and Team Mysterio has to do is create, they just need one opening, something to trap him in, and I already got the perfect one for it, because you know how Mysterio tricked Spider-Man into seeing, like dead Iron Man and all the stuff like that. All of a sudden, Loki's standing there, ready to fight, and then all of a sudden, for a split second, he's surrounded by an army of Hulks. The one person that Loki fears more than anything, he's suddenly surrounded by 100 Hulks. You don't think that's going to affect his mindset? Look what happened when Loki saw Hulk on Ragnarok, when he was sitting far away from the Hulk on the planet. He had the joke of, I gotta get off this planet. He was so scared of him in that moment. He is dead scared of the Hulk, and Team Mysterio will know he's afraid of the Hulk and exploit him from that and use that to win.
That's pretty good. To counteract that, I will say, Loki will also be able to figure out Mysterio's weaknesses, and Loki has the power to shapeshift. All Loki has to do is transform into Tony Stark, and Mysterio will lose his mind and lose all focus, and it'll be an easy win from there.
So it's the holographs of the Hulk versus a shape-shifting Tony Stark. Is that what this battle boils down to?
That sounds like what this battle turned into, yes.
I think the idea of villains fighting each other is just fantastic, because obviously we don't get to see that a whole lot in the MCU, because villains are regulated to their own movie and they don't really interact with each other. But I think that's unfair. I mean, the Avengers get to work together all the time. Why can't we see more villains work together? But I guess that kind of answers my question, because if they do work together, they'd probably end up fighting each other. So I think this was a really good batch of fights today, and it was really fun talking to you about all the times that you would lose, Nick, in this battle. But I guess it's not really up to me. It's about to the people listening to this. So let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Who would win these epic matchups between these MCU villains? Thank you so much for watching CBR Saga, and we'll be back next time with another exciting episode. Thanks for watching. See you next time.